In this video, I'm going to show you how to make dark, ambient, heavy drum and bass. Let's start with the drums. So what I want you to do is highlight 4 bars. So we're going to be focusing just on these first 4 bars of the drop. And the first thing I want you to do is to find a disgustingly heavy kick drum. Something that sounds like this. Now I've taken mine from a loop and I've just cut out the kick because it sounded particularly heavy in this one. And I'm just using the kick from the loop and nothing else. And then to make that heavy drum pattern, it's slightly different to original drum and bass. So we've got the same BPM 174, but we're going to go like this and place them one step after the other. So it sounds like this. And then we're just going to zoom in a little bit more, and in this gap here, we're going to place another one and then another one. So it sounds like this. And then we're just going to copy this across all 4 bars. And that's your kick drum setup. Now we need a snare. So what I've done is I found this snare here, and it's from a break. This is from a jungle break called Dispatched Break 2. And I've just taken out the snare, and I've kept some of the percussion elements as well to give it a little bit more groove. So this is going to go in between the first 2 kick drums on the second beat here. And then what we're going to do is drag it across to the 4th beat and then move it back 2 steps like this. And then I'm going to take some more of this break sound here and extend it, and then just cut off the ends so there's no weird sounds. Do the same for this one as well if you want. And we get this. It just adds a bit more groove to the track. And then what I can do is simply copy this across. And boom. And we've already got that groove. Now what I can do is find a hi-hat. So again, I found this really cool hi-hat sample. And I've just chopped out the very first 2 hats from it. So there's a hat here and a hat here. And then all I've done is copied it all across. So we get these really fast sounding hats. You can hear that there. Instead of just one hat, it's going like crazy. On these 2 hats, the volume of the hats is slightly different. So it gives it that swing effect as well. And if you want to have a quick look at the mix down, everything is super quiet. So the kick's loudest, snare's second loudest, then the hats are in the background. And both the kick and the snare are in mono, as you can see. And there's not really any post-processing going on. It's just sound selection mixed with good volume choices. And I've changed the volume on the left here instead of on the mix down itself. But then I've done more fine detail mixing on the volume later on. So we need to add even more to this to get it to sound even swingier. So what I've done is I've found another hi-hat and I've just put this on every 3rd beat of each bar. So just copy it across and you get something that sounds like this. And that's super quiet in the background. And then another thing I found was this really cool sweep in a perk loop. So this perk loop here sounds like this. And I've just taken out one of the sweeps, I think it was this one, and then I've just adjusted it into my track to give it some extra effects in the background. And nice and simple. At the end of our 4 bars, what we're going to do is add a little break sound at the end to give it a bit more variation. So I'm going to remove this last snare here, and I'm going to add this break sound. So this is a bulldozer amen break. And all I've done is snipped the very start, so it sounds like this. So I've added this bulldozer in, and then we can add the snare back in, but we're just going to shorten it down, so there's none of that percussion sound getting in the way of the bulldozer. And then drag it back too, so it's like this. So now you get that nice separation between the snare and this break sound. So altogether it should sound something like this. And make sure when you're applying these not to do too much, so literally just a tiny bit like that, just to stop any clickiness. Otherwise it might get a weird pause and it might sound a bit dodgy like it did there. There we go, that's much better. Now what you can do with the 4 bars is you can literally duplicate it all the way across to make 16 bars like this. But then at the end of your first 8 bars, you want some kind of transition. So you can either create this with the kicks and then add like a tom or a cowbell or something. So it sounds like this. And then at the end of the 16th bar, you want to create another transition, either with 4 bars or 2 bars, and in this case I've done 4 bars, and all I've done is slightly edited the drums, added the build up and the build up 1 back in, and then added instruments back in from the build up and the vocal back in from the build up, which we'll get to later on, but I'll just let you listen just so you can see what it sounds like. And then it would go into the next stage of the drop. So it's keeping it interesting throughout, not getting boring. And then the only other drums I've got is a crash. So if you don't know how to make a reverse crash, it's really simple. Let's say you've got a crash here, and you duplicate this crash here, and then you can make unique, click on it, and then click reversed. And I believe on Ableton you can do the same. You just tap R or Control R, I can't remember exactly, but it's simple as well. And then you can just take the end off this and then bring that up. And there you go, you've got a reverse crash into a crash, and it sounds really cool. This is what it sounds like. And then I've just found some build-up loops and another build-up loop. Feel free to make your own build-up, but I just thought this sounded pretty cool, so why not use it? So now let's look at the bass. Now for once, I haven't actually used Serum. So if you don't use Serum, you're in for a bit of luck here. Now the basses are really simple. So what I've done is I found these really cool samples and then I've taken elements from them. This is just like a bass line from a sample pack, and it sounds like this. So it's literally just like a sine wave with loads of distortion on and saturation. But I've just taken it for my own. I've not even got any post-processing on it, just a sausage rattler on the master. And it's literally just this repeated throughout. And then at the end I've got this really cool pitch shifter. So I've gone on here, changed the range to 12, gone like this, right clicked, and then created automation. And then I've gone boom, right click here, right click down here, and it creates this crazy sound. Wow, like that. Just as a nice little transition into the next 4 bars. And then what I've done for this sound is I found a really cool sample where it was just like really long, like foghorn basses. And then what I did is I stretched it like 3 or 4 times and then processed it with some Camel Crusher, I think it was, and then exported it into this own wave file. And then I just experimented until I found where it sounded good in the track. So it sounded completely different to this when it started, and I just stretched it out, changed the pitch, figured out where it could go in the track, applied some Camel Crusher, and kept experimenting until it worked in the track, and eventually it sounded like this. Of course, we've got some Kickstart 2 on it on the audio setting, and that makes it sound more cohesive with the drums. And the bass pretty much stays the same throughout. It doesn't really change much. It's more the drums I'm focusing on changing around and adding transition phases and things like that. But when the next section comes in here, I might do some slight variations with the bass to keep it interesting. So that is the drop done. Now if you want to learn how to make tunes like this really fast, there's a free music production workshop down below. So all you need to do is click the link and sign up. Let's now look at the intro. There's 3 main parts to the intro. There's the instruments, there's the vocal, and then there's the effects. So to start with the instruments, what I always like to do is look for a really dark, eerie pad. So listen to this pad here. This was originally playing a chord progression, so it was a chord progression sample, and then I just took the start of it, which was in the key of my track, and then I just looped it to get this really eerie sounding pad. So it's going to take some digging to find these pads, but you can create your own, obviously, as well, if you've got like a Nexus 4 or Omnisphere or something like that. I just find sometimes it's easier just to go through all the samples on Splice or in sample packs and just use your ears to find a higher quality sample and then just change it around and use the bits that you want. So once I've got like an eerie sounding pad, you can either choose to do the sustained note like I have here, or you could try a chord progression, but often or not chord progressions are quite hard with pads to get to sound good. So instead what I did was made a progression with a respace here. So as you can see, it's in F minor. So I've put it in F minor and then I've just created this progression. So let's listen to how this sounds. And this respace is just from one of my sample packs. and then it would just repeat itself. But obviously the drop's coming up here, so it kind of phases out. And then the next important part of an intro is your pluck. So I have found this really cool Nexus sample, and I've created like this arpeggiator between F and G sharp. In the very first 8 bars, it just follows the pad progression, and then it switches to follow the Reese progression. So I'll play it all so you can hear what I mean. And there's also a filter on it down here, which you can see is slowly getting louder and louder as it comes towards the drop. So you can see these top notes are following the respace progression, or at least following notes in the same key as F minor to get that really cool tension build-up sound. So that's that done. And then as the build-up gets more aggressive, I've found like all these different weird kind of samples. So one's just like another ARP that gradually comes in. One's like this weird Atmos effects. And then one's like a vocal effects. And it just builds tension, especially in the build-up. And all these together sound like this. And then you get that. So this is all just about sample selection and getting them all to fit perfectly together and building and progressing your track into what's going to be the drop. And then obviously we have vocals as well. So I just went on Splice and found this one. Normally it takes me a lot longer to find vocals that fit, but I got really lucky with this and found it pretty much straight away. So let's listen. So wash my sins away, make me clean again. Hold my head and lay me in the ocean. Wanna start again. Hold my hand and take me to the ocean. So it's just one clip like that. That's the whole sample, and it was in E minor originally, and I just bumped it up to F minor by putting it up 1 semitone. And then you can see here, all I've done is chopped this vocal around like this into here, but not chopped it too much, so don't go crazy with the chopping, otherwise it can sound really cheap and crap. But I've done it just enough to give it that variation and make it sound really good. So let's listen. Take me to the ocean. Take me to the ocean. And there we have it. And then on top of that, we've just got some basic effects. So we've got like some white noise here, a riser here into the breakdown, an effects filter down. And then in just before the build up starts, there's a couple of impacts as well, and another riser here. And that combines again with this crash from reverse crash we made here. And then it goes into the build up drums. So that is everything in the track complete. So let's listen to how this track sounds overall. Also, let me know in the comments if you'd like me to release it. So wash my sins away, make me clean again. Hold my head and lay me in the ocean. Wanna start again. Hold my hand and take me to the ocean. Take me to the ocean. Take me to the ocean. Wanna start again. Hold my hand and take me to the ocean. Wanna start again. Hold my hand and take me to the ocean. And that is the tune complete. If there's something you really want me to cover in a video, let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.